On Christmas night, and you know the feelings that we're all going to have, the purple haze, as I call it, of elimination, and we head into a meaningless game in Cincinnati. I have elected to begin the year in Baltimore, Maryland here as the clock strikes midnight on Saturday night. This poor guy will be somewhere near Mason, Ohio. He is Clifton Brown, CSN. He covers the Ravens and will be on the scene with the pre- and the post-game stuff that he does, of course, with Brent, amongst the others at CSN who do such a nice job of covering the Ravens. Cliff, it was so close to having chili in Cincinnati on New Year's Day for me. And, I guess that's the symbolic part of that reach from Antonio Brown. Sort of sums up what happened to the Ravens this season, right?
Yeah, it was a game of inches, a season of inches for the Ravens. Great play by Antonio Brown. And by that margin, the Steelers are going to the playoffs, the Ravens are not. So this is a unusual situation for the Ravens. Last year, with all the injuries, they knew, pretty much by mid-November they weren't going to go to the playoffs. But to a man, when they took the field in Pittsburgh, they thought they were going to win that game. Certainly with just over a minute left, when they took the lead on that great run by Kyle Juszczyk, they thought they were going to win the game. But their defense could just not hold the Steelers in the fourth quarter. 3 touchdown drives by the Steelers, capped by that great play by Brown. And, yeah, the Steelers earned it. Somebody had to lose. It was a great game, and the loser, unfortunately for Ravens fans, was the Ravens.
During the glory era here of winning, and it's not lost on me because I've written books about it, Cliff, that they stayed healthy for the most part. They had healthy football players. These last couple of years have been marked by these injuries, and for me, in the middle of the offseason, if you would have said, well, who's the player that, they can least afford to lose? I'd say, well, it's Flacco, of course, but if they lost Tucker, that wouldn't be good. If they lost Yonder, that wouldn't be good, and Mosley's starting to emerge, and Brandon Williams, they're all starting to emerge. They can't lose any of those. I don't know that Jimmy Smith would have been in my top 5 to say that guy will be the biggest difference maker if he's not there. And if I had to write a book on this season, it would be about the fourth quarter in Odell Beckham. It would be about the fourth quarter in Dez Bryant. It would be about the fourth quarter against the New England Patriots when they gave up a bomb over Weddle's head, or Elam, depending on who you ask. And then, of course, this past weekend, we knew Antonio Brown would be trouble. Kept him relatively in check well enough to have a 10-point fourth quarter lead. But in the end, it was their number one receiver that did him in. And when you're losing to number one receivers on the road week after week in this league, and you don't have your number one cornerback, I have to start the book there, quite frankly.
Yeah, and that's something the Ravens are going to have to address this offseason because of the drop-off when Jimmy Smith is not in the lineup by the player of the secondary, particularly a corner, is too severe. And Tavon Young was a nice draft pick at cornerback. He looks like he's going to be a nice corner for years to come, but the Ravens need someone who can match up with the biggest receivers, those elite receivers that you mentioned. Jimmy Smith is a heck of a football player. He has not shown, though, that you can count on him to be healthy through a 16-game season for 16 games. And even if he is, the Ravens need more depth at corner. So that is one of the issues they most need to address. And, yes, without Jimmy Smith in the lineup this season, his absence was just really, for the most part, something the Ravens defense could not overcome.
He is Clifton Brown. You can follow his journey at Clifton Brown, CSN, out on Twitter, as well as on Raven Game Day on Sunday. I'll be watching the pre and the post this week. I'm going to take the week off. I'll be tweeting. I'll be watching. I just did not feel compelled to go to Cincinnati after walking out of that stadium on Christmas night and up the hill, Cliff. As far as devastating losses and things that set the franchise in another direction, I don't think on Monday we're going to be sending any Black Monday text here about the parting of the ways of John Harbaugh or of Ozzie Newsome or Eric DeCosta or any of the other key guys inside this organization. I think the Ravens have had more patience than this, but it's been 3 out of 4 years. I know it was very close. This is happening throughout the league. You hear the fans and you hear the conjecture, but you also know these guys have worked together pretty well for a long period of time, and there's a lot of cases that could be made for a lot of things that went wrong, certainly last year from an injury standpoint and this year, as well as draft picks who haven't panned out and some who have. I feel like they're going to hold this thing in-house. What are your thoughts on this, Cliff?
Yeah, I don't think that John Harbaugh is going anywhere. I wrote today on CSN, Midatlantic.com, that would be a major mistake if the Ravens went with a new head coach. I think Ozzie Newsome and John still work really well together on the same page. But they do need to upgrade talent as far as cornerback. Certainly, they need more playmakers on both sides of football. Wide receiver. That's something that they're going to have to address. And I think the biggest issue is offensively they need to become more consistent. And I thought the departure of Gary Kubiak as offensive coordinator 2 years ago was a major blow. And the Ravens offense hasn't been the same since Kubiak left, and Joe Flacco hasn't played as consistently since Gary Kubiak left. And whoever the offensive coordinator is next year, I think it needs to be someone who can, get more consistency out of Joe Flacco, someone who can certainly make the running game and the young legs that they have in Kenneth Dixon and Terrence West more a part of the offense than they were this year as far as running the football. That's the jump the Ravens need to make, in my opinion, is on the offensive side of football. Defensively, late in the season, the offense did disappoint as far as being able to hold teams like the Steelers and the Patriots down late in games. And even in the Eagle game, to me, you saw signs of the defense wearing down. But I think they carried too much of a load on the defense this year with the Ravens, trying to support an offense that was inconsistent most of the year. So they've got some things to fix, but it doesn't start with John Harbaugh. To me, he's one of the best coaches in the NFL, and despite missing the playoffs the last 4 years, he still is.
The jury's going to be out on Marty Morningwig here. I don't know how many times you want to change offensive coordinators, right, Cliff? If you don't feel like you have the right one, I hear that. But that has been, the real, as Rex Ryan gets fired here this week, another former defensive coordinator, and Chuck Pagano certainly is going to be on the ropes again, heading into next week based on what happened there. You've lost some defensive guys to become head coaches elsewhere. You've lost some offensive guys, whether it's Caldwell, Kubiak, that have gone on for other jobs. But Flacco's had a lot of different people in his ear. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I don't know if I throw Marty Morningwig out in that way, and I know there's a lot of relationship here, but clearly the offense has to be better, and the blame has to go somewhere, and Mark Trestman's not around anymore to get blamed for this, right?
Yeah, and you don't make the change. You don't shy away from making the change just because you've had so many offensive coordinators, and you don't just make a change if you feel Marty is the best guy to move forward with next year. I mean, when the season began, it was Mark Trestman, and it was supposed to be Mark Trestman for the next several years. That didn't happen. So Marty was placed in a tough spot, taking over midstream. I do think the offense got better late in the season. If I'm Marty Morningwig, that's the case I make to say that, look, I took over during the middle of the season. Yeah, it took us a little while to get going, but in the Miami game, we looked great. In the Pittsburgh game, we certainly scored enough points to win and put together a drive that, looked like it was going to be the game-winning drive. So I think it's a tough decision, but I think the Ravens, whoever the offensive coordinator is, it needs to be someone who they're sure can work well with Joe Flacco, stay on him as far as, fundamentals, maybe see him make some progress as far as, checks at the line of scrimmage and reading defenses faster, those type of things. And if there's another offensive coordinator out there who's available, who can, make the most of the talent that they have and make them more explosive and less methodical, then maybe they should go after that guy. If they feel that Marty can make that jump, then okay, stay with Marty. But whoever the offensive coordinator is, they need to be a better offensive team than they were this year from start to finish if they're really going to think about being a Super Bowl contender.
Well, I think the offensive line got better. I think the possibility for receivers got better. Perryman got open. He didn't always catch the ball, but he got out on the field and ran around and found himself open. Now, catching the ball is going to be another. We're going to hear about that until he drops the first one again next year at some point. But he's going to be sticking around as well as some of the young guys. Then there's just the questions about Brandon Williams and Kyle Juszczyk and Rick Wagner and then Suggs getting long in the tooth and Doomerville and the kind of money they make, and Steve Smith won't be back from what we can tell. So there's going to be some relatively major change happening just because the market conditions are going to dictate that, right?
No question. That happens with every team. I think that the Ravens this year, this offseason, I don't think they'll be devastated in free agency. Yeah, Brandon Williams is a heck of a player. It's going to take a lot of money to re-sign him. So the Ravens may decide that with having both Jernigan and Pierce, that Williams is too expensive for their blood. But I think they brought in enough young talent. The draft this year was pretty good. Obviously, Ronnie Stanley, great pick at left tackle. Tavon Young, already mentioned. Kenneth Dixon showed a lot of promise at running back. So, yeah, they got, Matt Juden showed some promise at pass rusher. They have enough young talent that if they have another good draft, I think the talent level, will be as good, if not better, than next year. But, yes, pass rush to me is definitely a key area. They can no longer rely on Suggs and Doomerville, whether they come back or not, to be the guys carrying the pass rush and having other pieces being complementary. They've got to find pass rushers somewhere, because if you can't get pressure on quarterbacks, that's one of the major weaknesses for any defense, the way the game is played now. And then if you can't get a pass rush and you also have problems covering people, then your chances of stopping good offensive football teams is really slim.
Always love visiting with Clifton Brown of Clifton Brown CSN out on Twitter, and of course Comcast Sports Mid-Atlantic, where I'm watching lots of Caps games. The Wizards have been winning here lately, so I got my CSN plugged in as well with Cliff, and I'll do that post game on Sunday as well. Cliff, for me, with the rookies and the young guys, and who's played well and who's made a mark, the Perryman thing still sticks out as something where you still feel like we're going to need a receiver in the offseason, right?
Yeah, Perriman needs to play like a first-round pick. Now, this was his rookie year. He missed all of his real rookie year. So it's not like he's a finished product and he'll never get any better. He did show flashes this year. He made some big plays, as you mentioned, too many times. He didn't catch the football when it was thrown to him. So he's going to have to take a step up if he's going to be what the Ravens thought he was going to be, basically a player like Torrey Smith, who had speed and made big plays on a consistent basis. Perriman hasn't done that yet. He needs to. But regardless of Perriman, they can't wait on him and just expect that that's going to happen and not fortify that position. They need more playmakers. They're going to lose Steve Smith unless he changes his mind about retirement. Kamar Aiken, another free agent. I have doubts whether he'll be back with the team next year. They've got to get more playmakers at the wide receiver position. Dennis Pitta had a terrific year at tight end, and they have depth at tight end. They have running backs who can catch the football. But being a team that can stretch the field with their wide receivers and take advantage of Joe Flacco's arm, they were not that team this year. And that needs to change for them to take the next step offensively.
Terrell Suggs got chippy with me at the locker in Pittsburgh when I asked if he was looking forward to coming back and playing in the game again next year. Like it's a foregone conclusion that he's back. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he's coming back, even if he believes he is. I'm not shutting that door or opening that door, but I would say that he is going to cost him a lot of money. I am not moved so much as to think that they think he's the leader that they have him believing he is. I see him as he might be back, he might not. I see him as a 50-50 guy, quite frankly.
I don't think it's a done deal. I think the odds are in his favor of coming back. One, he wants to come back. Two, they're not going to save a ton of money cap-wise by cutting him. And three, unless they're sure that they can get a sufficient pass rush without him, they may feel they need him. So I think the odds favor him coming back. Again, though, he's at the stage of his career where I don't think you can count on him staying healthy. and I don't think you can count on him being a double-digit sack guy anymore. So whether Suggs is back or not, the Ravens need to make sure that they have a formidable pass rush without Suggs. And then if Suggs is still part of the mix, whatever he gives them is almost a bonus. But the days of them being able to pencil in Suggs and Doomerville as double-digit sack guys are over.
You know, John said they're going to play the starters this week and play to win and all that stuff. I don't know that I agree with it. I mean, I agree with it from, hey, people are paying to see the games, and I'm going to be turning the game on, and I know what these preseason games look like because I see them in August every year. I don't necessarily need one of those to start my year on Sunday, but, I don't see any upside in playing Joe Flacco in this game. I mean, I just don't.
That's I agree with you. Now, I agree with whoever's on the field playing hard and playing to win. I think this would be a great spot for some of the young players like a Perriman to get a lot of playing time. And whoever you put out there, we're trying to win the football game. I've heard some people suggest about, well, they lose, they'll get a better draft pick. I don't think that's something they should be concerned about at all. I mean, the draft is such an inexact science that even if they do get a higher draft pick than where they're seated now, there's no guarantee they'll get a better player than they were picking in another spot. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. I'd be trying to win the game. It's who you're trying to win the game with. I don't really see an upside of playing, Marshall Yanda and Terrell Suggs, who've been dealing with injuries all year. I wouldn't have a problem with playing Ryan Mallett in this game and giving Flacco a day off. I mean, the Ravens aren't going to the playoffs. 9-7 is better than 8-8. But yes, I think that having your key players remain healthy, maybe finding out a little bit more about some of the young guys you have is important. So, I'm with you, Nestor. I would say that anybody who, is injured and any of your key star players, other than Steve Smith, I'm sure he wants to play. It'll probably be his last game. I would tend to go with the younger guys in this game and play to win that way.
Cliff, we're going to be on the couch watching football here the next month, so have fun in Cincinnati. Get a little chilly with some of that cheese and the noodles and all that for me when you're there, okay?
I'll do my best, Nestor. I'll try and make the best of it.
Tell Marvin I said hello. Happy New Year, all right?
No problem.
See you later. Cliff Brown, he is our pal from Comcast Sports Mid-Atlantic, and you can follow his journey at Clifton Brown CSN on Twitter as well. You can find me in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear 2016 or 2017. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. That is brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. Work off the cookies and the eggnog and the cake and the pie and the ice cream and the ham and everything else that I ate this week that was probably so good but so wrong. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Little Caps, little Terps, little Orioles spring training, little NFL. We're keeping it loose around here. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.